Stephanie is a senior testing and quality assurance professional. She has over 12 years of testing experience in healthcare, IT, and information and communication technology. She was originally on the path to be a pharmacist, but Stephanie's career took a complete turn when she was contacted by a recruiter looking for someone with clinical experience to join the QA team of an e-prescribing company. So from there, Stephanie's career took off, and she now serves as a test engineer manager for one of the leading mission critical communication and information system providers. Stephanie is currently on the path to financial independence, and with her sister Marie, she founded, if you can say that for me,
Winance. Wine and finance.
So I love
favorite things.
I love it. Which provides financial education content that helps people break this cycle of spending, grow wealth, and live intentionally. So, Stephanie, if you could fill anything I may have missed in there for me.
I know. So that is basically my whole career, kind of starting out when I was in college. I was going to be a pharmacist. I was actually working as a pharmacy tech at the time. This was back in 2006. That I was a pharmacy tech. And basically, I had every intention of going to pharmacy school. And one day I was contacted by a recruiter at the pharmacy. It was just kind of one of those random like cold calls, but I happened to be the one who picked up the phone that day. And they were just looking for someone who had clinical experience to join their test team, their QA team. And so I said, you know what? I like what I'm doing, and I like being, on the path to becoming a pharmacist, but I wanted to give them a try. I was young at the time. This was, I guess, 2007, probably when I was originally contacted by them. And so I said, I'm willing to take the risk. So I met with the recruiter. It seemed like a really cool job. To be honest, when I started, I didn't even know what QA stood for. It stands for quality assurance. I know that now. But when I started, I was like, look, all I know is that they want to pay me more money, and I'm game for that.
Right.
So luckily I got through the interview process. And then in 2008, I left the pharmacy, started working as a software test engineer for a company that did e-prescribing. So like when your doctor writes a prescription like electronically, that was what that company did. We produced the software for those types of things.
Oh, really?
So yeah, which I know a lot of people like, and that's the thing too, when you explain what e-prescribing is and mission critical stuff, people cut their eyes glaze over. So I'll try to put it in an interesting light in what I do.
No, I mean, that's cool. Like, cause, well, I guess I might understand it a little bit more, but yeah, like digitizing stuff and making it so it's just not have to be paper and things like that. Imagine if it was just a paper trail and you move out of state and now you have to like go find this paper trail. So now that is like e-prescribing, you can just pull it up. Cause I've had that issue. Like my baby, we're from Michigan. We were on a trip to Chicago and she was born in Indiana. So trying to get all those records, if they were still like paper, and some of them are still paper, some random ones. So it's like really interesting. So that's
I know. And that's a good thing too. And especially coming from the pharmacy world, I understood the pains of trying to read a doctor's, handwriting on a paper prescription and having to call them up and be like, is this 2 milligrams or 12? Like you can't read their handwriting half the time. And you definitely want to make sure you get that right. So, the whole idea of digitizing it and doing e-prescribing, it saves lives, it's cheaper, it's easier. Like, frankly, there's nothing wrong with it. Like that's the way everybody is going now. And actually some states are requiring it now. So going back to like my path. So after the company ended up getting sold to another company. And so I left there and I went to actually what my current company is. And I've been with my current company for a little over 10 years now. And we do mission critical and communication and information systems for the government. So we work with DoD, NASA, FAA, and it's a global company. It's based in Vienna, Austria. So we have customer sites all across the world, but I work for the US headquarters. And so I'm the test engineering manager for them. And that basically means I run the test teams. Everyone who's part of our programs, we work on software, we work on hardware, and I oversee all the test programs for that.
That's really, really awesome. That's awesome and impressive. So what do you think has been your biggest success to date? I think it's really cool, your career, and you obviously love what you do now. But what do you think has been your biggest?
Honestly, just achieving what I have, achieving where I am in my life right now. It's vast difference from where I started. My sister and I, we grew up financially insecure. Our parents were divorced at a young age. So we had a single mom raising both of us and, dealing with two teenage daughters growing up and whatnot. And so, you kind of think, okay, that life is never going to be for me. The white picket fence and having like a nice neighbor that you can just go jogging in and whatever is not going to be for me. And the career that I'm in right now, I never even imagined that was what I was going to do. Like when I started working at the pharmacy, I wasn't making a ton of money. I loved doing it. That was one of my most favorite jobs that I had, but it doesn't pay a lot to be a pharmacy tech. The money is really in being the pharmacist. And so that's why I said, okay, if that's what I got to do, then that's where I'm going to go. But really just following the path that I have and that has kind of been led in front of me, and taking the risks that I have has really been my success. If I hadn't taken that call that day at the pharmacy when the recruiter called, if I hadn't said yes to meeting with her, my life would be completely different than what it is today. So I really believe in like things happening for a reason. And, when those opportunities are put in front of you, you have to sometimes say yes to them, even if it seems scary or like a risk or out of your comfort zone. Sometimes you just have to take that leap. So that's kind of what's led me here. And that's been my greatest success, being able to achieve what I have to this day, being a test engineering manager with no technical background, to start with in the beginning. That when I was going to school, I was going to get a degree in chemistry that has nothing to do with what I'm doing today. So, it's interesting how those certain life choices that you make just take you in a completely different direction than you expect.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Okay, you can hear me. Yeah, that's you are so right. Like sometimes it's just like jumping at those opportunities that are in front of you. So let's talk about more about your financial independence journey. So you said you grew up financially insecure, that you went to college.
She can join the party. That's okay.
That you grew up financially insecure. You went to college for chemistry, and you were working in the pharmacy, not making a lot of money, but you were going to be a pharmacist. And pharmacy pays well. Initially, I mean, I don't know, but
as a pharmacist, yes.
Yeah, as a pharmacist pays well, but there's a lot of debt that comes on with that degree,
exactly.
and it takes some time. So you were able to, save money. But my question too is also, there are a lot of people who are first generation, like college educated, first generation making money, but they don't know how to spend their money or are not on the road to financial independence because they don't know how to manage their money. What made you decide to take control of your money, and why are you taking control of your money?
Sure. So kind of like I mentioned with, growing up financially insecure, I have, everybody I think who doesn't grow up in like the ideal world has some kind of insecurities around money just as they grow up. And so obviously I have that mentality of like, I need to hold on to my money tight and not waste it because I don't want to repeat the mistakes that my parents made. And so when I finally became working age, 18, 19, 20, and you start figuring out what you want to do for your career and, going to school for it, I wanted to make sure I went on a path that allowed me to earn income. I think it's great that, you can do art or, music or anything else that is a beautiful thing to do, but doesn't really pay a lot. But when it comes to being able to actually pay your bills, you need a job that's going to pay you money. So that's the path that I kind of decided to go with. I've always kind of been a saver. I think probably because of the way I grew up, like I said, I wanted to hold on to my money tight and was afraid of losing it. So I would save my money to a degree, basically enough that I could pay my bills. I could go out with friends. We could do fun things, but I also wasn't saving for the future. I was saving for the now. now. And if I wanted something, I would buy it. And if we wanted to go do something, we would go and do it because we had the money, quote, to do it. But really what kind of changed it for me was my sister. She had started getting into investing, learning about the concepts of financial independence. And, we're best friends. And she, was telling me about what she was learning and the concept of retiring early, which I was like, oh, well, that's not for me. Who retires early? I was in my early 30s at the time. I'm like, that's definitely not for me. Like, I'll work till I'm old and gray, probably. And like, probably happily, that's what I kind of thought. But the more she got into it, the more I got into it. I started researching more, started reading all the FI blogs and, following all the podcasters and YouTubers and everything. And of course, I loved the idea of your money making money. The thing that had always kind of scared me was you heard those stories in 2008 and 2009 when people lost everything. And that terrified me because that just gave me flashbacks to my childhood. And so I definitely didn't want to go on that path. But when I learned about index funds and that there's intelligent, ways to invest that you don't have to risk everything. And when you kind of learn how the people in 2008 and 2009 lost everything, a lot of it was because they didn't educate themselves on where their money was going. And so I've always been the type of person too, that when I get into something, I get really into it and I want to know every detail of it. So that way I know not to make certain mistakes or, things to avoid so that you're not risking everything. So I'm definitely a calculated risk kind of person. But the knowledge is what kind of made me do the leap. Once I started learning more, once I was aware that these concepts even existed, then I got as much information as I could so that I could educate myself and I could feel more confident on the decisions that I was making rather than just feeling like, okay, well, I'm just going to take a leap and hope that I make some money. Like, no, I know exactly where all my money's going now. And I know exactly how much I'm earning and how much my investments are earning. It's not just kind of living day to day now, but I'm living for the future now.
Okay, awesome. So what are your goals? Do you have any goals of retiring early? Do you have a certain FI number that you want to reach? What are your goals within that?
Oh, definitely. So, in terms of retiring early, it would be awesome if we can. I always used to joke before, I even knew about the concept of FIs. I'm like, as long as I can retire by 50, I'm good. And that never seemed like a real thing to me. It was always kind of those passive jokes. Like once I had my son, I was like, as long as he gets into sports and gets some, $1 million contract and lets mom and dad retire at age 50, I'm good. But now it's actually a feasible idea. It's a reality that could happen, assuming that the world doesn't continue to explode around us and things stable out and get back to normal, sooner than later. It's very possible that I could reach my FI number by age 50. At that time, I would basically decide, do I want to continue what I'm doing? Do I want to go on a different path? Do I just want to go find a nice beach somewhere and lay on it? That's the great thing about reaching financial independence is you have those options then at that point. So that's kind of what I'm doing for that. In terms of my FI number, I think we're aiming around 1.25 to 1.5 million. We live in a high cost of living area. We're in the DC, Baltimore suburbs. I don't know if we'll stay here. I think that's another thing too, is who knows how taxes and things will be in the future, even 10, 12 years from now. So, we'll have to kind of see how things go in terms of that. But I think just that's the whole point of financial independence, is that it gives you the freedom to choose the life that you want to live rather than just doing, going through the motions and doing what you're, quote, supposed to do just because that's what everybody else is doing.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I want to talk about you. You said you have a kid or kids.
Just one, yeah, just kid.
But how does it feel like that you're able to provide a different life for your child? Was that was it intentional? Are you intentionally doing things so your child doesn't have to experience the same thing that you did? How does that feel, and what are the plans around that?
No, yeah, it's definitely very intentional. Even my husband, he had a similar upbringing as me. Neither of us were born with a silver spoon in our mouths, and both of us have worked for everything that we have today. And we're teaching that to our son, that, we want to provide him with the most opportunities that we can, but we also want him to understand the struggle to a degree, that life isn't just handed to you and you need to earn what you have. So we teach him now. He's 6 years old now. And since he was 3 or 4 and started understanding the concept of numbers, we've been teaching him money topics. Like, we discuss money openly with him. And I think that's very important, because that's one of the things growing up. I think there's a certain shame sometimes that parents, like from our generation, feel when they don't have a lot of money. And I fully understand that. There's also kind of a traditional, don't talk about money, you don't talk about religions, politics, and sex, like that kind of a mentality. And especially when it comes to money, I think it's important to discuss it openly and at an age appropriate level with your kids, because if you don't tell them what you're doing, whether it's good or bad, then they will either try to figure it out on their own and make some bad decisions that their friends are making, or that they saw on TV or the internet or whatever, or they'll make the same mistakes you did when you could have tried to help them and prevent them from doing that. So it's extremely important to me for my son to be aware of what the concept of financial independence is, to try to achieve it, even if you get halfway there. I said the other night, we do a weekly broadcast, and I said, if your goal is to make $1 million and you only get halfway there, you still have $500,000. Like, there's no negative to trying to reach financial independence. What's the worst thing? You have more savings in your account? Yay. So, that's kind of the thing. And it was funny, the other day, he was doing a school project and he had to answer what he wanted to be when he grew up. And I was like, first off, you're 6, like, don't worry. This is whatever you choose today. It's not going to be what you choose probably even next year, let alone when you're an adult. So I was like, just pick something fun. And he was like, well, I don't know what I want to be, but I know I want to be rich. And I said, well, first, you want to be wealthy. Second, you want to be financially independent. And that's what stuck in him. And now he's like, Mommy, one day I'm going to be financially independent. I'm like, yes, you are. So that's the thing. And when you teach your kids at a young age that these ideas exist and that it is a possibility for them, then that opens their world. Because if they start saving at an even younger age, then they'll have money that I certainly didn't have in my 20s. I didn't really start making my money until my mid 20s. So, if he has $50,000 by 22 years old, he's scores ahead of where I was at that age. And just being aware of it, saving for your kids, teaching your kids how to save for themselves, it's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, I think that's completely awesome. I grew up like super middle class, I always say, so not poor, not rich, just just super middle class. But my parents still never had those money conversations. And then when I got older and you peel back, you learn that a lot of people are living on credit and debt, and they're living by a thin hair. And when our parents' times, credit was really easy and inflation was big. So you could have a nice car and have a nice house, but not have anything saved, not really be financially secure. And it was kind of easier to keep up that smoke and mirrors then.
Exactly.
And then after 2008, that changed. Credit is harder to get than it was then. Housing, mortgage, a larger mortgage, harder to get than it was when. And that kind of caused it. It was a mortgage bubble. They were giving out more bigger houses than people could really afford.
Yeah.
But the only financial advice I remember, my parents were like, take out a whole bunch of loans to go to college. It's fine. You'll make enough money to pay it back. And there's one time that I didn't have enough money for the semester. One of my parents told me to charge the semester on a credit card because they always thought that whatever, you could pay it off later. You just want to make this money to have this lifestyle. You know what I'm saying? You just want to spend this money so you have this lifestyle. But I think it's important. And I didn't understand that. I didn't understand what money wasn't a real concept to me then. So I'm like, okay, whatever. Everything was paid for. My lights were already on and anything. So money wasn't, I didn't understand.
Yeah, no, I definitely understand. And I agree. That's the thing where I will say I was fortunate that I never really got into student loan debt. I went to community college. Even my sister, she went to community college, got her associates, then went to the University of Maryland and got her bachelor's. But she did take out student loans, but was able to pay them off pretty quickly. You know, I never got super into student loan debt, which I'm fortunate about. And that was one of the reasons that I also decided not to continue my path to pharmacy school, because I knew you're talking at, you know, well over 100,000, hundreds of thousands of dollars of student loan debt for pharmacy school. And at the time, like I said, this was, I guess, 2008, 2009, pharmacists were making around 80,000 back then. They're probably hopefully making a little bit more now. But that was how much I was making when I was promoted to manager in my first job. When I was promoted there, I started making around 80,000. And I was like, well, if I'm doing this now and I have no student loan debt now, then why would I go and intentionally jump into $200,000 of student loan debt to make the same amount I'm making now? So I will say I was fortunate in that I had the foresight to say, okay, let me see how this path goes and not, you know, jump into the student loan world.
Yeah, no, that's very smart. And I think younger people need to be more educated about that. It's smart that you just made a good decision. But I tell the students I work with, I do a lot of ACT, SAT prep. I tell the students I work with, go where you can go free. Because if you can graduate with a positive net worth, instead of, most people are graduating with a negative net worth. And then 10, 15 years later, still have a negative net worth because of student loans. So it puts you at a disadvantage. Imagine if you were paying $1,000 a month to student loans, $2,000 a month. If you were able to let that money invest, or that's a house, you know, that's a house.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Have a better house. So it hurts our wealth when you are starting at a negative net worth, but it can be dug out of. But like being able to pass that on to our kids, like my daughter will not have, unless she takes it out herself or whatever.
Exactly.
Like, she will not have student loan debt. So being able to put her on a better footing for her to start.
Yep, exactly.
We talked about like your role, your successes. What's one of your biggest failures that you have? Like something that was a setback, something that you had to overcome. Like, what do you think one of your biggest failures were? Either like generally or on your road to trying to pursue financial independence.
Mm-hmm. So honestly, it probably was how I was spending, you know, when I was young. So I've been literally working since I was 13 years old. I got my first summer job at a summer camp when I was 13, and I worked, you know, every summer since then. And then when I was 15 and 16, I started working part-time jobs, you know, during school and everything. So I've been working for however many years that is now. Don't make me do the math. But that was the thing, is that I remember there was one time I was 18 and I was dating a guy, and I had just gotten my my W-2 for the year for my job, and I had made $10,000 that year. And my boyfriend goes, well, where's all that money? And I'm like, oh, you know, like I literally could not say. I was like, when we went out to dinner and went on vacation and did stuff, like I had no savings. I was making all this money, but it was just going to nothing. And then even, you know, when I met my husband and we were dating and everything, again, I was making money, and I was making enough money to pay for our bills and pay for our lifestyle, but it wasn't going anywhere. And that's kind of my regret, is that I wasn't more intentional about how I was spending my money and lack of savings. You know, there was literally no savings. There was maybe $100 or $200 in a savings account. And that was kind of like just what if. Like I didn't even have the idea of an emergency fund or anything like that. So certainly if something were to hit the fan and, you know, you have some major critical expense, we would have been one of those people that were like, I don't know. And I didn't even have credit cards to lean on, because I was so fearful of getting into credit card debt. Like that's the one thing I will say that was fortunate, is I was so fearful of debt that I did my best to not get into it. But I also went the other side and didn't do anything about growing wealth either. I was just floating along, you know, with my income. I also remember there was one month, and it was after we had bought our house. So when 2011, my husband and I bought our first home, and it was a townhouse. And again, we were making money. We had saved enough money if we got a FHA loan. So we only put 3.5% down on the house and everything. But, we had a little bit saved at the time, but really weren't doing much with it. And that's when I finally started paying attention to really what we were spending. Like I started using Mint to track our expenses and try to create a budget. I was really focused on where our money was going. And I said, at this point, both of us are making pretty decent money. It's time to start really figuring out what we want to do for the future. And so I was checking my Mint spending trends. And in 1 month, we had spent over $1,500 on eating out. That was restaurants, that was going out to bars, that was, picking up, wine at the store. It was everything. And that did not include groceries, which I'm like, how do you spend $1,500 and none of that is even groceries? Like that, it sickens me to this day that I think about that. I'm like, oh my God, did I really spend that much money? And that was kind of a turning point for me where I was like, this is where our money's going. It's going to just frivolous things that we don't really care about. Like, it wasn't even like we were getting good meals. We were ordering takeout from, the local pizza place and Chinese food and stuff, which is, don't get me wrong, Chinese food is some of my favorite food, but not $1,500 worth. So that was kind of thing where I just regret that I was not being more intentional about where my money was going for a long time. And like I said, that was 2015. I had already been in software testing for 7 years at that point. So 7 years of fairly high income that just went to God knows what. I mean, like I said, we had our house, we had cars, but there really wasn't much else to show for it.
Yeah, and like I was saying before, most people live in that situation. Most people do that. Like your spending just inflates with how much you make. I was in a similar situation with a boyfriend. I had him sign up for Mint. I was like, we need to start saving money. Well, no, that didn't happen because he was spending all the money. He was like, we should stay in this weekend. I was like, why? What's going on? He was like, oh, I started using Mint and I realized that we spent $2,000 eating out last month. And I remember he said he wanted a Porsche Panamera, and he's like, oh, I can't afford it. I don't make enough. And I was like, you know what? We're spending our money that you could drive a Porsche.
I know, a $2,000 a month car note. You know what kind of car?
Right. Like, because I think at the time, we looked up the price, like a car note of a Porsche would have been $600.
Oh,
and
wow.
you just cut $600 from your eating budget and you can save the rest. Like, this is a lot of money. So it's really, really easy to do that eating out, and people do that very easily. Like, you're not the only one. I noticed like that's behind the mortgage, like that's the largest expense people have. Like,
I know.
And usually frivolous eating, not even like eating they enjoy or
exactly.
Anything.
It's not like we're going to, the finest restaurants for that amount. Like, no, it just adds up. Going to happy hours with friends, just getting takeout because you're too tired and don't feel like cooking. It really adds up.
Do you budget? Do you have a budget? Like, how do you go about your finances? How do you make sure that you're spending money on things that you enjoy and not wasting money and things like that and growing your money? So how do you manage your money that way?
Right. So in terms of a budget, I do budget sort of. I kind of call it a fluid budget. So like I said, I'm a Uber minter. I love Mint. I use Personal Capital too and stuff. But I think in terms of being able to track what we're doing, I really like Mint. And so I'll create my monthly budget for it. But also I don't like beat myself up if we go over in a certain category, because mostly what I care about is our bottom line. So I know that we should spend, generally X amount of dollars per month for our living expenses, for our home, and, for gas and for groceries and for our fun activities, whatever it is. I know that, this is the amount of money that we should generally be spending each month. And basically, I know if we're going over, or if it's like halfway through the month and we are well over halfway through our budget, we got to cut back. So I don't really, get too tied up on how much I'm spending per category. Certainly, I'll do check-ins when I track my net worth each quarter. So every 3 months, I will check our net worth, and I also will check our spending. Then I'll do a trend chart and basically see, okay, where's all our money going for the past 3 months? And typically, like you said, it's going to be around home stuff, so your mortgage and whatnot. But if I notice there's a major spike in our grocery bills, or a major spike in our restaurant and eating out bills, or just other things where I'm like, we're kind of getting high up there, I'll see what we could do to try to pull it back. So that's the thing is I don't really, I budget, but if it's low in one area, I'm okay with moving that to another area that's a little bit higher. Kind of like basically if I get to the end of the month and our grocery budget has already been met or exceeded, I'm not going to not buy food. Like we need to feed our family. But if I haven't spent nearly as much in another category, then I'll just pull that money from that category and move it to the other. So I kind of do a fluid budget, but try not to get too wound up as long as the bottom line number is around the same.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So tell us about wine and finance.
Wine, yes, Winance. So that's the company that my sister and I have started, Winance, and it kind of started, as I mentioned, my sister got into investing, and she dragged me along, not kicking and screaming, but she kind of told me about I think it was Go Curry Cracker and Mr. Money Mustache that she had heard about first, and Paula Pant and Afford Anything. And so I started looking into them too, and just some other financial independence and personal finance content creators and bloggers and whatnot. And so we both just deep dive into it. We got so into it, and I just became the guru of IRAs and 401ks, and so did my sister. And it was right around the 2016 election, which yay. It was after that, and we're just kind of feeling like you feel like you have no control over things. And I said, if I can't control the world and what's happening around me, then I'm going to control me and what I can do. And I said, 2017 is going to be the year of me. And that's when I really hit the ground running in terms of what our financial plan, our financial future was going to be. So in February of 2017, my sister and I invited some of our friends over to our house, and we had a Saturday night wine party, and we literally had a PowerPoint presentation that we showed them that was about basically investing and personal finance and financial independence. And that night we rebalanced everybody's 401ks and, told them like what fund options they had in their 401ks. Because that's the thing is most people, they have no idea what to do when they get that pamphlet from their employer for their 401k or their 403b or whatever. They kind of just say, okay, here you go. Yeah, if you invest $200 a month, you can have $600,000 by the time you're 60. Like, okay, but how do you get there? How much should I be contributing? How much can I afford to contribute? So Winance kind of spun from that. We would keep having these parties with friends and family. And, when you tell somebody that you're going to have wine and cheese and snacks and stuff, they're like, oh, yeah, I'll come. And then you're like, by the way, we're going to have this presentation. They're like, okay. As long as you tell them, I'm like, we're not selling anything. We just want to share the knowledge that we have.
I love that idea. I want to take it. We're in COVID, but
I know. Well, that's the thing is, so, our friends and our family kept saying, like, you guys should do something with this. Like, this is awesome. And really, like we rebalanced my cousin's 401k, or I think she's 403b because she's a teacher, and hers doubled by the time that we had done everything. And I think it was like half a year later, it had already doubled because she had upped her contributions. The market had done well. I mean, I think it was in a target date fund, but it probably wasn't even the right year for what her planned retirement would be. I mean, when you don't know where your money's going, it's hard for it to really live to its fullest potential and earn as much as it can. So yeah, that was the thing is like, we said, okay, well, let's try to make Winance a thing. And so actually due to quarantine and COVID and being locked up in our house for the past 6 months, ironically, our business has really exploded. We're able to do a weekly broadcast where we'll do a live stream, and my sister who lives in Delaware, and like I said, I'm outside of DC and Baltimore. We can do a live stream together. We don't have to be in the same room together, and we have blogs, and you can just post that online. So just because we're all locked up right now and and shut in doesn't mean that you can't share this information. I mean, that's the beauty of the age that we live in now. We can sit here, and you can be in Chicago, and we can talk in real time. I keep telling my husband, imagine if all this happened, 30 years ago, you could barely do video conferencing or anything like that. I guess if you had like a few $100s to spend on a piece of equipment. But yeah, it's kind of amazing the age we live in, despite everything that's going on.
Right. Yeah. FaceTime and like video calls are definitely a lifesaver. It definitely be different. But no, that's awesome. Can you tell us where people can follow you and your blog and things like that?
Sure, of course. So our website is wineancefi.com, and that is WINEA. Let me make sure I'm doing this right. I need to be able to spell my own Winance. Oh, good Lord. WINENANCEFI.com. It's
Okay.
wine and finance. And I know every time we type it, we have to like make sure we actually spell it right.
I'll have it in the description as well.
Yes.
But
And then
mhm.
yeah, and then also you can we have a YouTube channel, so you could just search Winance and you'll find us, as well as on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Winance as well.
Okay, cool. Thank you for that. So one last piece of advice: what would you tell women or anyone who are trying to start on this journey? A lot of the people in my community, kind of similar position to where you were when you were younger. They're making good money, but they don't know where it's going. And sometimes, most of the times, their parents weren't in the same financial situation they are now. So, what would you tell people that are starting on this journey?
So I would definitely say that one, realize that anything's possible. Just because your background is a certain background, or you came from a certain financial status growing up, does not mean that you will be stuck there forever. It really is your choice. And kind of as I mentioned earlier, sometimes life will present opportunities to you, and you really need to be open and aware of them. And sometimes it's worth it to take that calculated risk. Without those risks and those changes, then you can be stuck where you are. The other thing I'd say is, not just believing in yourself, but believing that you could have a future. And so don't just think about the now, but think about what your potential future could be, especially if you have a family, a husband or wife, children or child. Think about what you want for them and as you want for a family, and realize that anything can be done. Educating yourself on the concepts that are out there. All this information is free. What we do for Winance, it's all information that we've learned on our own. Schools aren't going to teach this to you. And our parents, typically aren't going to teach this to you, because most of our parents aren't even aware of these ideas. So really seeking out the information and learning as much as you can will only benefit you in the end. Like I said, it doesn't matter where you started from, but it just matters where you want to go. If you're making decent money but just have no idea what to do with it, then just start reading some of these financial independence blogs. Read Winance, read Simple Path to Wealth by J.L. Collins. That's a super easy read, and it will give you all the information you need on, how to start investing for your future, how to plan for your retirement, even if you're in your 20s or 30s. I think that's the other thing too, is a lot of young people are either just graduating college or just starting their degrees. They tend not to think about retirement. I mean, even when I was, in my early 30s, and not that I'm that far from my early 30s now, but when I was in my early 30s, I was thinking, well, that's too early to start thinking about retirement. But it's not. It's never too early to start thinking about retirement, because there is the concept of retiring early. And even if you don't think that's something that you would want to do or plan for, why not? Like, why not even try to just aim for that? Because by the time you get to 50 or 60 years old, you can decide, nope, I want to keep going. I love what I'm doing. Then awesome. But if you get to 40 or 45 and you're like, I just can't do this anymore, then at least you gave yourself options. So, don't get stuck in your past. Don't get stuck in what people might tell you that you can or can't do. Believe in yourself, believe what you can do, and educate yourself, because the education is power. Knowledge is absolutely power. And without that, I would definitely not be where I am today.
I think you hit some key notes. Definitely, it's about freedom. And so, freedom to make those choices and having a financial situation where you have the freedom to work or not working. And then having the power to give your kids a certain lifestyle, to give yourself a certain lifestyle, and to give yourself security and comfort. So thank you for that. I really, really appreciate you joining us. Everyone join. I'll have her information in the description so everyone can join, and just start. Just start. Do it for our future, your kids' future, and your now, so you can live more securely and enjoy the fruits of your labor. So thank you so much.
Thank you. This is great.
Thank you.